Good day and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In this episode, we're going to continue our coverage of the ongoing civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. But before I begin, yes, as you can tell from the sound of my voice, I am suffering from an ailment to which I hope to recover from as soon as possible. That is one of the reasons why I have limited some of the videos as it is a little more difficult to create content in this sort of state. But anyway, I wanted to, before I start with an update on the ongoing situation, on what is occurring inside of the former state of Ethiopia, I wanted to try and give some perspective to those individuals who are on the supporting side of the Abiy Ahmed Prosperity Party. And I wanted to try and offer a bit of understanding and perspective about kind of what is going on and some of the feedback that the channel has received in terms of reporting some fairly factual information to the best of the channel's ability. And if we go back to the start of the conflict, back in November of last year, 2020, I would say at this point that's really irrelevant. There are different sides to the equation in terms of who started what and how it started, but at this point that's really irrelevant. It is a military conflict right now, and at some point, in all probability, the situation will be resolved by a military outcome or because of the progress of certain military outcomes. But if we go back and we look at when the Tigray region was completely occupied, with the exception of the central Tinbian region that was unable to be occupied by the Eritrean army and the Abiy loyalists, the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. So first, again, this was called a law enforcement operation. So again, from that context, that is untruthful. It was not a law enforcement operation. It was a military operation with the support of external forces, meaning the Eritrean army. Yes, were there Ethiopian National Defense Forces, federal police involved in this operation? Yes, there was, in terms of rear area security operations, and then obviously Amhara militia units. But by and large, the initial military operation was launched by the federal forces of the Ethiopian National Army and the Eritrean Army. And those forces obviously occupied much of the Tigray region, including the capital Mekelle, Aksum, Adigrat, Shire, and a host of other, Alamata, and a host of other cities as well. Most all of the cities that run from east to the west and the north, and north to south in the east, including western Tigray itself as well. And as this conflict progressed, I had conducted a deep analysis of capabilities of the Tigray region, of capabilities of the ENDF, and had come to the conclusion that a tremendous miscalculation was made on the part of the Prosperity Party, Abiy Ahmed, and quite possibly his general staff, who was giving him advice, and that advice probably was also coming from the Eritrean side as well. And it was very clear to me at a certain point. We would have to go back and look at the videos, that in all likelihood we would see a catastrophic collapse of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces inside of the Tigray region. And in all likelihood, I had believed that roughly July, August, we would see the momentum rapidly change. And I had discussed these momentum swings that occur in these sorts of conflicts. And it occurred. Those forces, the Abiy loyalists, were evicted, and their forces fell apart in the Tigray region around July, and were evicted from the Tigray region. Next, then we looked at what was happening in terms of the preparations of possible invasion of the Amhara region by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and it was very discounted by viewers on this channel. In saying that it was impossible, that the Tigray Defense Forces were defeated, but that was being said throughout the entire occupation of the Tigray region, and even when they were evicted, it was still the message that was the false narrative that was being preached by many of the observers on this channel who observed, who supported the Abiy Ahmed Prosperity Party, continue to believe that the TDF had been defeated and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces were in fact victorious, and they were just simply leaving. And unfortunately, that again was not the case. And we quickly saw an invasion by the Tigrayan Defense Forces to alleviate and to remove this anaconda strategy that was then being utilized by the Ethiopian National Defense Forces. And we first saw it near Kobo, and of course, the false narrative that was coming from the regime media was that no, Kobo was under the control of the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, and the Tigrayan Defense Forces were dying in droves around Kobo. So, as we know now, obviously, Kobo is under the firm control of the TDF. So, again, a false narrative that was simply discounted. And again, this channel, I'm not trying to pick sides. I'm just trying to give information, unbiased information, about what is occurring from a military standpoint on the ground. Next was Weldia. Obviously, the same false narrative. No, the TDF is dying. They're leading them into Weldia to destroy the entire Tigrayan Defense Forces around Weldia. Well, obviously now Weldia is under the control of the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and then we've seen this repeat itself: Sakota, Lalibela, Gashina, and again the same false narrative. No, the TDF is defeated. They have not taken Weldia. They have not taken Kobo. They have not taken Lalibela. They have not taken Sokoto. It's not true. But it is true, unfortunately, if you are a supporter of the Abiy Ahmed Prosperity Party. So again, at a certain point, I would hope that those individuals who are listening to Ethiopian state media, especially the Amhara regional media, that they may start to take into account what the channel is saying. And again, I'm trying to report factual, realistic information about what is occurring on the ground. And then we get down to Desai and Kambalcha, and obviously, again, the narrative was that the TDF was being destroyed. There was going to be a great counteroffensive, and all areas were now going to be retaken. Now, keep that in mind that prior to the great offensive that was going to occur just north of Desai and Kambalcha, none of these areas had officially been taken by the Tigrayan Defense Forces, but now there's going to be this offensive to retake those areas. So again, just understand you're getting a false narrative on what is occurring. I mean, if you want to hear the untruth and then for some reason believe that, I understand, and that's your prerogative, and you can do that. But to even my surprise, Desai and Kambalcha fell rather quickly. And the Tigrayan Defense Forces have since moved on. And we continue to hear the same false narrative, especially to some of the listeners of the channel. Other unfortunately, listeners of the channel who were very opposed to what I was reporting in terms of simply reporting and analyzing the progress of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And I would assume because you were hearing something you probably didn't want to hear in terms of the progress of the TDF, you assumed it to be bias. Now, unfortunately, that's not the case. It was just what was going on the ground. The Tigrayan Defense Forces were militarily defeating the Ethiopian National Defense Forces and the Amhara-backed militias. And that leads us to where we are now. Again, the Oromo Liberation Army has really woken up in terms of its operations north and west of Addis Ababa. We're now starting to see the Oromo Liberation Army and the Tigrayan Defense Forces now operating together south and near Kamise. But again, you cannot change what is actually happening on the ground. And again, please harken back to when the Tigray region was occupied by the Eritrean army, by the Ethiopian army, by the Amhara militias, and they were then evicted. And then the counterattack took place. And again, there was denial around all of these areas. You can see on my map, all the areas in green are obviously controlled by the TDF and continue to be controlled by the TDF, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, the Tigrayan Army. But that is the status quo. And again, you cannot change that fact. I cannot report something that is simply not the case on the ground based on the intelligence that we receive, and we receive it from both sides, the TDF side and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces side as well. And there is also the issue of me reporting the Ethiopia as the failed state of Ethiopia, the former state of Ethiopia, which it is. Again, when you have a state when one entire region succeeds and militarily defeats the federal forces, drives them out, invades another region or multiple regions, and then you have a rebellion, a internal civil war within a civil war of the Oromo Liberation Army, which we would assume that anywhere from 40 to 50% of Oromia probably supports the Oromo Liberation Army or is against the Prosperity Party. Then you have other areas of the country as well, such as the Benishanga areas that are in uprising as well. So more than 50% of the country is at this point is controlled by a faction opposed to the federal government. And then law and order has simply broken down in a lot of these areas. Even now, we're starting to see law and order break down in Addis Ababa, where we're seeing ethnic cleansing starting to occur by the Prosperity Party and forces loyal to Abiy Ahmed. But again, those are just the facts on the ground, and traditionally, when you look at those facts, you can then define that state as a failed state, which again it is. But again, I understand that if you're a supporter of the Abiy Ahmed regime, then obviously you do not want to believe that, and that your perception is a bit different than reality. So again, I can't change that perception. The only way that would probably change is once these armies start to actually enter Addis Ababa, and then reality may set upon you at some point. And that's really unfortunate if that were to have to happen. But again, just looking at ongoing operations, the status quo has not changed a lot from the reporting of yesterday. Now, with that being said, there are lots of movements on the ground right now. Again, the Tigrayan Defense Forces made some tremendous advances near Dessie, Kombolcha, and now as we speak, we're seeing a significant buildup of forces south of Dessie, south of Kombolcha, just like we observed prior to the seizing of Dessie and Kombolcha. Now, this takes time. Remember, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, the Tigrayan Army is not a mechanized, motorized forces. There are a lot of forces on the ground right now that are marching via foot to various locales inside of the southern Amhara region, and now, as we speak, encroaching towards Addis Ababa as well. But again, you can expect to see something fairly significant in the coming weeks. The other issue right now is the defensive line set up near Debre Berhan and Debre Sina. if you are on the Tigrayan Defense Forces side of the equation, that is of concern. It looks like they, meaning the Abiy loyalists, some of the Amhara regional militias, have been able to set up a defensive perimeter near Debre Berhan and Debre Sina. And I talked about seizing Debre Sina in the area just west of Debre Sina as a component crucial to the ongoing war effort for the success of a possible move on Addis Ababa. Now, we haven't seen that area come under the control of the TDF as yet. We're watching it very closely. Again, it's going to be a very significant engagement near Debre Sina, and then obviously a move possibly on Debre Berhan. But again, we will continue to keep our eye on the situation and report as events warrant. Have a great day, everybody.